Welcome to the Turret of Pleasure, high up in the top of the enchanted kingdom of Hermione. I'm the head of the Turret of Pleasure, Zip Gun, the Lord Chamberlain of the enchanted kingdom. And today I'm going to attend to a few things, but one of them I'm going to attend to right now is that I'm going to continue my deep dive into the albums of Kiss. And of course, as always, I will preface that I think Kiss is the worst band in the known universe, so you can take that into mind when you watch the rest of it. And the album in question today is Rock and Roll Over, which is, I don't know about a title called Rock and Roll Over, but it was the record that followed Destroyer. And I think I'm going to do this with all of these. Okay, the story to this point. Kiss are formed. They're a glam band with their all image and literally almost no substance. They're launched on a new label, Casablanca, which has no shame. They put out their first record, which is garbage. It doesn't do anything. They put out their second record, Hotter Than Hell. It, too, is garbage. It doesn't do anything. They're kind of getting a bit of a rep on their roadshow because it's so ridiculous. They do a third record. The label is going broke. The owner of the label comes in to produce it. It makes no difference. The record is trash. But there's one pretty good song on it. And the record kind of sneaks into the bottom reaches of the charts. And by this point, the band is broke, their manager is broke, the label is broke, and they throw all the chips in and they figure, well, what the hell? Let's do what everybody else is doing in 1973, 74. Let's put out a live album. So they do a tour, they take the tapes from the tour, and they realize we can't use these. This is crap. So they get Eddie Kramer to come along, who knows a thing or two about live albums, and he basically, they re-record large portions of it, let's just say. No, I'm not going to get into how much, but certainly I'm going to guess all the guitar solos. The neat thing about Kiss Alive is that it sounds very uniform sonically all the way through, but it's from 4 different concerts, so that'll kind of tell you. At any rate, that's the record that does it. It saves Casablanca, it catapults Kiss into stardom, and finally their road show is getting, whatever. And so then they realize, those previous 3 records are kind of shit. Maybe we should get somebody who knows what they're doing to help us record them. Because they're not very good songwriters and they're not very good singers. So they hire Bob Ezrin. Now, Bob Ezrin is, he's kind of nuts, but he's also been working with Alice Cooper and had terrific success with Alice Cooper, who's very much a show band. He's also done work with Lou Reed, with Berlin, which is not a show band. That's a pretty weird record. They pull him in, they do Destroyer. It's massive. Has a huge, unexpected hit with Beth. Comes out with possibly their best song, I think. Detroit Rock City. There is also Shout It Out Loud, which is amongst their very best songs, and you hear it at every hockey game nowadays. And it's really, if you're an alien from outer space and you land on Earth and you say, "What is this Kiss I hear of?" Give them Destroyer and say, "Get back to me." So Destroyer happens. Well, now they are stars. They've been writing songs as if they're stars. It's really funny, but it's so. This record, they're stars. And, of course, now they've learned their lesson. And, okay, we need a producer. We need a guy who can, And so they bring back Eddie Kramer. Now, Eddie did the live album. Eddie is a pretty meat and potatoes producer. He's great at getting good sounds. Really good. And around this point in time, in the early 70s, his sound was a great hard rock, very dry, not much reverb, bit of delay in some things. And I got a feeling this was a record they needed to get new product out fast. Destroyer was on the charts, it was doing great, but they wanted, the second it fell off the charts, they wanted to bang, put something else up. because they were hot. So they get together, typical of Kiss, they put together a 33-minute long album, which is just barely LP length. But this time there's a few differences. First of all, because there's no Bob Ezrin, you don't get the the film soundtrack, car chases and stuff. This is a rock and roll record. And what's more, it's much simpler. Couple of noteworthy things. Sean Delaney gets 3 co-writes on this. Now, he's a guy, he kind of was with Kiss, as a lot of people call him the 5th member of Kiss in the old days. And him and Paul Stanley co-write 3 songs on this. Take Me, Mr. Speed, and Makin' Love, all of which are okay. Now, the thing about this record for me was the overall song quality of the songs written by the members of Kiss is it's slightly higher than it has been in the past. That is not to say that any of the Gene Simmons songs are listenable, because their lyrics completely rule that possibility out. Gene continues on his path. Now, I've never met Gene Simmons, but I know enough about Gene Simmons from reading his lyrics to know that I just detest this guy. He's got a really bad attitude about the opposite sex. And, calling Dr. Love, love him and leave him, and what's the other one? See you in your dreams. If Donald Trump was a heavy metal star, he'd be Gene Simmons. This is just unbelievably delusional behavior by a guy who, unfortunately, by this point is now a huge rock star. So if Ladies' Room, you know what Ladies' Room is about already, right? So I'll meet you in the ladies' room because I need quick sex with something cute, and then I want to discard it like a used tissue. So Gene's songs are terrible. Okay, I Want You opens the album. That's a Paul Stanley song sung by Paul Stanley. Now, once again, I'm going to point this out. These guys are lousy singers, with one exception, and I'll get to that. So I Want You is actually not a bad song. Chris Gow has a great quote. He says, if these guys had a Jagger-esque lead singer, they might be a menace. And he's only partly right, I think, because what they need is a Jagger-esque lead singer who can write friggin' songs. Because a lot of these songs, none of these are even remotely, taxing intellectually, let's just say. Making Love. So it's all still being aimed at the 15-year-old boy market. However, there's a couple of weird things on this record that I found noteworthy. Remembering that this record was almost certainly done in a hurry. First of all, there is no Ace Frehley writing credits on this album, which is a first. By this point in time, I get the impression that they've been trying to include Ace as much as they can, kind of to keep, morale up and stuff. But I got a feeling because it was a bit of a rush job, he just didn't have any material. And he rarely had any material anyway. So he does a lot of guitar playing on this, and as usual, and this is turning out to be a bit of a thing with Ace, his guitar solos are vastly improved when you put them through crazy effects. In this case, I think it's a phaser he goes through, and it makes it more interesting. He's not a bad guitar player. It reminds me of a not quite good enough James Williamson on his best moments. But he's probably the best musician in the band, because Peter Criss is just the most wooden drummer ever. However, Peter Criss is also, wait for it, probably the best singer in this band. And the reason I say this is he takes Baby Driver, which he writes with his buddy Stan Penridge, who also co-wrote Beth. They were both in a band together before Kiss. And he does this song, Baby Driver. Now, how much of this Peter wrote is probably open to question. Some of the guys in Kiss say he never wrote a song in his life. I would bet he had some input. But he does sing it, and he has a pretty good growly rock and roll voice. Certainly it's better than Stanley's, and it's miles better than Simmons's. And Baby Driver is not a bad song. And this is reflected in the fact that it's almost 4 minutes long. There are no songs 4 minutes on this album. No way. Nothing over 4, and there's only 2 under 3. One of which is See You in Your Dreams by Gene Simmons, which is just such a lousy song, I can see why they made it so short. The outlier on this record, and it's in the second to last slot, which is where you put the weird tracks, or the ones that, or whatever, the ones that you don't really want on the album, but somebody insisted, is Hard Luck Woman. Now, Hard Luck Woman has a couple of things about it that make it unique. First of all, it's about a woman, but it's kind of sympathetic. And this woman, I don't think, is actually trying to get into anybody in Kiss's pants. I think it's just a sort of a descriptive song. And second of all, it's written by Paul Stanley, but it's sung by Pete Chris. And the minute it came on, the first thing I thought was, wait a second, did somebody put Gasoline Alley by Rod Stewart on my turntable? Because it sounds exactly like early period Rod Stewart. There's a 12-string guitar. It's sort of acoustic. It's not a bad song. Of course, it's at the end of the record where nobody's likely to hear it unless they play the whole record. But you know what? All in all, as an expedient, this record did a great job. It sold like crazy, it kept the flame alive for Kiss. And so it did its job admirably. And they did it with a minimum of song doctors. Because, like I say, love these guys or hate them, they're lousy songwriters by themselves. Their songs are just, there's nothing to them. They're just pro forma, ticky-tacky kit car songs. And for what it is, this record actually is something of a minor triumph. I think, what is it? I started giving Christgau type grades to these. And I gave Destroyer a B-. I would probably give this about a... what? This I might give a B- as well. It's not as good. The other record has better songs. This is more consistent. And I found that I could listen to it without too much pain, provided I didn't listen to any of Gene's lyrics. The last album, this is kind of infuriating, because I don't like Kiss, and I don't want Kiss stuck in my head. But I had King of the Nighttime World stuck in my head for a week, which irritated the bejesus out of me. So there must be something there, and this is sort of why I'm doing this deep dive. My old self says, oh, come on, it can't be all that bad. But people also say that about other artists, where I listen and I go, yeah, no, it is that bad. So here you go, Kiss. It's rock and roll over, and they're kind of going now. And we're kind of going into the end of the... How would you describe the Kiss career? You could say there's the early days, pre-fame, and that ends with Kiss Alive. Then there's the peak, and we're in the peak right now. We're in, Kiss Alive, we get Destroyer, we get Rock and Roll Over, we get... What's the next album? I can't even remember. Is it Creatures of the Night? Love Gun, right, Love Gun. And then basically this era will end with Dynasty. And so, yeah, this was the first time I'd heard this record since it came out, probably. And that will be the same for Love Gun, so be interesting to see. So there you have it. Yeah, give it a B-. It's okay. Gene Simmons is just terrible. There's actually one drum fill that goes dum 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 dum. I think in the whole album. Apparently they recorded the drums in a bathroom. Kind of sounds like it. But again, for what it was meant to be, recorded September 28th to October 17th at the Star Theater. There you go. That's how they did it in those days. And back on the road, these guys toured like maniacs in these days. So there you go. Rock and Roll Over. A good name for a not so great album. What does it say here? Eddie Kramer attempted to capture the live sound of the band by utilizing the entire building. Oh boy, I've done that before. What a headache. It does not lead to a better recording, I'll tell you that right now. But whatever, I hope they had fun. That's it. Thanks for watching. And subscribe and like, and I've been lazy, so I haven't made any videos, but I'm going to make a bunch now. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Take care of each other, and we will talk about other things. Take it easy.